Something that I get asked about a lot is how to create a weekly agenda template. I've mentioned this before that the weekly agenda is sort of where I spend the majority of my time in Notion because that's where I sort of have a bird's eye view of what's going on. So I want to show you what that actually looks like to create the agenda template, and so that you can use that week after week and you have a bit of a flow and a process for how you use it day to day. So what we're going to do is I've got this initial dashboard set up, and what I'm going to do is create a database here. Doesn't really matter whether it's a table, calendar, inline, etc. I like the gallery view here. And what I like to do is just remove the default ones. And so let's call this our weekly agenda. It doesn't look like much here because we don't have any entries in here. And part of the reason I really like to do these agenda entries as a database is that we can add those properties that you see at the top here. So for example, let's, instead of created time, I'm just going to change that up to a date field. Let's call that date. And then any properties that you want to track week by week. Maybe you've got your vitamins, you've got any kind of habits that you want to track, you may want to build in here. And let's give this a week. And you can add an end time. There you go. Add an icon. I like to add my tasks for the week through a relational database. If you're not familiar with that, I do go into more detail about that in other videos. So I'm going to try and keep this one focused on the weekly agenda for the moment anyway, and hopefully this will start to make sense as we build it out. So you can see nothing fancy here, and I can also give a table view if you just want to see what that looks like here. And then over time, obviously you're going to start to build out a list of all of these different weekly agendas. Now, what I recommend doing from the beginning, if you can, because it can be a bit of a pain in the butt to format after the fact, is to create yourself a template for these. So you can see whenever you're editing a template, it shows you up here, you're editing a template in the weekly agenda. And I would open this up as page. And what I like to do is at the top right, click those dots and go full width, because I like to do like a Monday through Wednesday or Monday to Friday columns. And those can go pretty wide. Okay, and so what you do is to make columns, you drag it to the side like so until you see that little blue bar appear. And then you give yourself these columns here. Now, there are so many different ways to do this. You don't have to do it this way, but I like having my sort of quick notes in my meetings and things like that above here. And then what I like to do is embed my master task database by clicking Create Linked Database. And I will embed my tasks in here. And you'll see that added it into the Monday column, which makes it all squishy. So you just want to click and drag that out. And I like to give this a Kanban view. And I'll probably just call that, weekly. And then I can hide this as well. And so these kind of loosely match up with the top area. And if I adjust the properties here, I can say, make that small. And you can see those start to more closely match up. Really depends on the size of your browser and how much you care about those being the same width. I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to delete these. I don't really need all of those properties. Usually just include the date. And again, I can drag these around and that will switch up the day to Tuesday. So this is the beginning of the week, and I just put the name in there. Probably want to add an icon. I like to adjust my icons on a monthly basis. So all of October has the same icon, all of September has the same icon. So my October one has a set of leaves. And then anything that you do every week, for example, take out the garbage. I will either create a template button or I will put this right in my template. Oh, take out garbage. And if that's a sort of personal note, I'll make that blue. Business meetings, I like to make pink. And again, if there's something that you add over and over again pretty often, like for example, I like to make meeting notes. So add a new meeting, and I give this a pink background. So if I close that and say add new meeting, you can see it adds this here. I typically add this above everything, and I will duplicate this as well. Move it to the side, and I'm going to edit this one and call it add new personal. And so anything personal will be blue. Great, and if I wanted to duplicate it again, I can do that. And again, if there's workouts, add a new workout or something like that, you can kind of make some template buttons for that and then drop them in where you need to. And again, you can use these template buttons for a series of to-dos. So let's say you have a set of to-dos that you do every week. Like a list of things. And for some reason, this is not letting me delete that. Okay, so you can always drag stuff into that template block. So let's say this thing, that thing. And so if you've got a set of things that you do every week, you can always click that and you can select and drop those where you want them. And so that is the beginning of your template. Now, of course, I don't necessarily want those there because this is the template. So this is what we're going to be creating every single week. What I like to do is make these, I select them all and hit Command Option 3 to make them heading style 3. And again, you can make those colorful. You can do whatever you want with those, but that's the beginning of a weekly template. So if I go back to the weekly agenda, you can see got my first week was already in there. I'm going to open that up and you'll see that that appears here as well. So if I click that, now I've got this style kind of laid out here. And you'll notice that it always defaults to the top view. So I've got these two views here. So what I'm going to do is go back to the weekly agenda. I'm going to go to my weekly template and I'm going to adjust this like so. Because again, I want it to default to this weekly view. Great. So if I create a new week, this opens up. Let's say the date is the 28th to the 3rd. And then I just name it as such. Great. And so what I do at the beginning of the week when I make these new weeks is I will open up the item, open it as a page, and then I will begin to put my tasks in there, my projects. So you'll notice there's room to add more properties here. I like to connect this to my projects by doing these relational databases, and then I pick projects. Make sure to name that. And then I can say those are my two projects that are important this week. And then I go through and I add any meetings that I've got and I put those into the right places. I know, and again, I can duplicate that as well. So it really depends You don't have to have these template buttons. Sometimes it's just nice to kind of, drag them into place. So I go through, I plot out my meetings, any quick notes, and then I take a look at my tasks for the week, and I can move things around, adjust things, see what makes sense. I'll often hide these as well. And another thing that I like to do is I add gratitude. Oops, that meant to be a text. Gratitude. And again, anything else that you want to track. I like to track my progress or even like effectiveness. And that can be a drop-down select. And sometimes I'll use emojis in here. Let's take a look. I like to do so let's make this a and if you want to as well, you can also add some oh yes, you can rename that. So effectiveness 5 stars, and that way when I go back to my weekly agenda here, I can move these around. I can hide this, and I can create a couple different views of this. So progress tracker, and let's say I only want to track, whatever habit I'm tracking, and that's it. Like maybe I don't want to track projects. Maybe I just want to track my effectiveness. And then similarly, I could do something like reading list or gratitude. And then in this case, in this view, I only want to show gratitude. So I'm going to hide that, hide anything that I don't want. You can also hide that from this menu here, hide and show. And then over time, as you do these week by week and you start tracking the things that are important to you, you can show them in different ways and really surface what's important. So if I go back to this gallery view, you'll see I can adjust these properties. And so let's say I want to show the gratitude, I want to show the effectiveness, and so over time, you've got these really great ways to track your progress. And I'm going to change the cover here, change these properties. Like you can make it visual, you can make it fun. Maybe you want to do it by, you can do it by page cover or page content. What I like to do for each week is add an image that kind of represents the week. And I'll often do that at the bottom. And I'll just upload an image there. And any changes that I make in the weeks themselves, I'll often go back into the original template and make sure to update this. So for example, I'll just put an image area here, and that allows people to allows you to upload an image, and that will take place of the cover if you want it to, and that way you start to have this sort of nice visual journal. And so I do this for my weekly agenda, I do this for my daily journal, and again, every time it's time to do a new week, I go new week, put the date in, and I'll also favorite that. So then that shows up in my sidebar. So the first thing I do beginning of the week, and even beginning of every morning, is I come in here, I'm like, okay, what's happening? What's on the go? What's pressing? Add any notes, make any adjustments, and go from there. So that's how the weekly agenda works. I do the exact same thing for the journal here, which I really like having this visual diary, right? So I can see this stuff over time. This part of these templates here are something that we built in the office hours, if you followed along with building from scratch. So this is where this comes from. And you can see I've got this journal template here. We can go in and edit that. And you'll see that this also links to tasks, it links to projects. So each day I can kind of see what was associated with this particular day. And of course, I would add the date in there. Oh, this is a template, so I actually don't really want to update the template, but just to kind of show you how it works. And again, I might do something with columns here. So mine has like notes on the left, and then on the right, I've got some, perspectives, what went well today, what were the wins, what were the highlights, and that sort of thing. I also do this for the weekly agenda. So I'm just going to go back to my dashboard here, adjust this. Oh, make sure to adjust this template. And so at the bottom, I often like to have like a weekly review. Some people like to do this separately. I actually used to have a separate weekly review database, but I didn't think it really made sense to separate it out from the week itself. So it's almost like the top of the week is the planning. The bottom of the week is the sort of, okay, well, what happened? What was your review? How did you feel about it? And so for this weekly review, I might say, highs, celebrations, wins, lows, challenges, anything nagging you. Yeah, again, any of those kind of journal questions that you ask yourself, I would put this in as a sort of weekly review. And then I do also like to do a bit of, again, you could add this as a property here, wins, challenges. And then again, the nice thing about that is over time, it starts to become easier to see over time, like what are those challenges, what's been going well, because I think the more that we see that stuff, the easier it is to start taking action with it. And for many weeks on end, I kept seeing that my challenges was that I'm overbooked, and it took a while, but once I saw that was consistently a thing that was a challenge, I knew I had some control over it, and it was time to start saying no to projects because I knew that that was going to impact my long-term projects. So all right, October 27th, great. And I can add a new option here for that. Maybe add less stars. So it does take a bit of time to set it up the way that it's going to make sense for you, but just wanted to give you a sense of what that looks like. There we go. And again, you can, choose so many different views here that give you different context. And you can really decide what's most important for you to see at a glance here. But this has definitely helped me with my own mindfulness, just being aware of my own limitations, where I'm overbooking myself, what's going really well. Again, you can decide what you want to see in there. Maybe you have your review is visible, whatever you want to show, you can absolutely do that. And that's how I connect up my weekly agenda. Now, I take it to the next level with a lot more relational databases like this. And so all my tasks, all my projects, and all of that are surfaced in my own. So I'll just go to my workspace and you can see what a typical week looks like here, or what my weekly planner looks like. So you can see I link it to effectiveness. I like to give each week 3 words that represent the week, and project focus, priority, tasks, learning. I like to do this learning too, which again is connected to my reading list and my studies. And that way I can do a reading list here if I want to, or just a progress board here. So if I wanted to add a reading list here, I could do this. And I could hide everything that is not that is not. There we go. Learning and reading. So maybe I only want to show those two. So one is courses that I'm taking, the other is articles that I'm reading. Right. And so then again, over time, I can see the impact of that. I didn't always used to include these relational databases. So you can see some of my older entries are actually quite a bit more limited, but over time, as things go on and there's more that I want to connect and track, it gets a lot easier to manage. So again, this is not something that I spend a lot of time on day to day. It took time to set it up initially, but now that it's ready to go, I can spin up a new week, just spend a couple minutes at the beginning of the week typing all that, those new pieces in, just go through. Again, effectiveness is something I do at the end of the week. Same with the 3 words. So it's just part of my weekly routine that there's a bit of a setup at the beginning of the week and the review time at the end of the week. And it's very, very straightforward now. So I hope that helps in terms of seeing how everything is connected. You'll see like my journal entries are in there as well. So there'll be an entry for the 21st all the way to the 27th. And one thing I can often do is I will go in here and actually link to my database, or sorry, my journal entry. And I can click and go right into there. So that is how the weekly agenda works. I hope that makes sense. Happy to answer and elaborate on any questions, because again, this is one of my favorite use cases of the relational databases and planning. And I just think weekly planning it's the easiest way for me to really see what I have on the go. And I hope that's helpful. So I recommend starting with a weekly agenda. Figure out if you need a daily entry. Maybe you like to do yours more like a personal journal, or a daily kind of stand-up list. Totally up to you how you want to handle that. I definitely like having a daily, monthly, weekly, and even quarterly as well. And I can go into more detail about that in another video, but hopefully that gets you started. Thanks so much for watching.